Yasha Kayaks-Wolf graduated from here in 1998. He's Chief Marketing Officer, and he oversees all MindJet marketing efforts, including branding, product marketing, demand generation, advertising, public relations, community, and web operations. Prior to joining MindJet, Yasha served as Senior Vice President of Marketing and Customer Success at Involver, the world's largest social marketing platform. He previously headed global marketing for WebTrends, the leading customer intelligence platform that founded the web analytics industry. Yasha served as strategic consultant for Alvarez & Marsal, a global business and advisory services company, and has held senior management positions at Microsoft's MSN and Windows divisions and Yahoo's Commerce Business Unit.
From a content perspective, I thought what I would do is just share a little bit about what my transition felt like professionally from my time at Whittier and what happened for me professionally that I really find to be very closely related to my experiences at Whittier. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of my experiences that I wish that I would have had somebody talk to me a bit about when I left school and how I applied what I learned at Whittier very specifically into the technology space. Does that seem like a decent way to spend the time? And I'll spend 5, maybe 10 minutes at the most.
You can charge me a thumbs
what I've
up.
done over my career and talking about Whittier in particular and how it relates to that.
Cool, you're the thumbs
Yeah,
up.
nod heads. Yeah? All right. Back from the right, thank you. So I left Whittier in 1998. I'll tell you a little bit about what my upbringing was first, before I even went to Whittier, because it does have a pretty material impact on my life as well. So I grew up in Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon. My mother was a rock concert promoter growing up, and so I spent a lot of my time behind the stage in concerts and learning how really businesses are run, entrepreneurial businesses will run, figuring out how to find acts, bring acts into a city, get funding for that act to play, and then sell tickets basically to come in and fund them. And so when I showed up at Whittier, I quite honestly didn't have a really good idea of what it is that I thought that I wanted to do, although I felt like spending time in the entertainment industry would be a really smart place for me to think about going, especially being in Los Angeles. Whittier, for me, my first 2 years completely opened my eyes up to all of the different potential avenues that I could find myself spending the rest of my professional life, or my professional life. And for me, what I found most exciting during my time at Whittier was just the ability to actually spend time in different departments and different areas that I would have never been exposed to, coming with a preconceived notion of what it was that I wanted to do. I graduated with a degree in psychology, and I really gravitated towards psychology and really philosophy as it relates to psychology, mostly because I found it to be a field where, when studied in the way that we were taught at Whittier, really evaluated the way that systems work, the way that people interacted with each other, the way that different styles of communication were effective or not. But for me, spending time in Whittier studying psychology didn't really have a practical application professionally, at least in my perspective. And so what I found myself doing was applying a lot of the critical thinking skills and the writing skills that I was taught through all of the work that I had to do in all of my different courses throughout Whittier and the relationships that I established with my professors into a lot of different things that I found to be interesting. Around the time that I was going to school, the internet was really coming into prominence, which I guess makes me sound really, really, really old. But as the internet started to come into prominence as a place where we could find information, the professors at Whittier really didn't know how to apply that into the things that we were teaching, but they encouraged me and the people that I went to school with to start to figure out ways that we could apply what we were learning directly into the internet. And so what I ended up doing was actually spending quite a bit of time in the psychology department studying the way that the information on the internet was starting to be organized. And that, for me, became a very logical jumping off point into my professional career. What I ended up doing right out of Whittier was actually writing my diatribe, the things that were most important for me, the critical skills that I felt that I'd learned in my 4 years of going to school, to a company that was just starting at the time. I wrote to a company called Yahoo at the time, which is a fairly large company now, but at the time it was just a couple hundred people. And I told them that I didn't know exactly what it was that I was going to do, but I guaranteed that I could apply skills from what I'd learned in studying psychology, that I could apply the skills that I'd learned by being an entrepreneur over the year into something that would make sense. And for me, getting a response back from Yahoo was pretty exciting because it validated for me this idea that you didn't have to have a specialized study in order to at least have an opportunity opened up for you, especially in the technology space in this growing world of the internet. Showing up at Yahoo with a few hundred people, this was a hyper growth phase in kind of the internet. There was a big rush of companies starting in the late 90s in the internet. Yahoo, Google wasn't even around at that time. AOL was very large. There's some other really huge companies that were just starting at that point. And for me, I found it incredibly easy to navigate through a company like Yahoo that was multidisciplinary, that wasn't incredibly technical, but I could navigate through it because I always had the ability to reach back to what I had learned in school, which was to apply systems and look for patterns in systems, which is really what I learned in psychology at Whittier. So for me, it became really easy to both move into entry-level roles and then move really quickly into management roles at Yahoo. And what was interesting for me is that as a discipline, I now specialize in marketing, but at the time, I was really a generalist. And I still consider that to be a pretty big asset that I have as a professional, is that I am a generalist. And that is 100% about what you learn in the liberal arts education. So for me, Whittier has provided really the foundation to let me apply systems into any role that I've had, and I've just chosen marketing as the profession that I appreciate most. Being a generalist, being a general manager, being the owner and the runner of a business is actually the way that I think you can be most successful in the technology space today. And whether you're applying those into companies like Yahoo or Microsoft, where I spent time, or in the analytics space, or even where I am today in the collaboration world, I think that the foundation, the general foundation that you have, and really thinking about how you can apply systems and the systems that are related to the department that you're studying in right now into everything that you approach professionally is going to give you a huge leg up, especially as you transition into the world of being professionally employed. What's exciting about Whittier to me, especially today, and definitely was when I was in school, is that there's such a broad spectrum of interests and studies. And I'll tell you that if there's one thing that you can think about doing, especially if you're kind of young in your career at Whittier, just think about building things. Think about what you can do to start your own, even if it's a business idea, if it's pitching what it is that you want to study, if it's thinking about shows that you can throw at the school. I think the societies provide a pretty fantastic outlet for you to think about creating and running the businesses. It's one of the areas that I think is really not talked about enough at Whittier. It wasn't when I was there, but being entrepreneurial in an environment that is accepting of different approaches and appreciative of different approaches as Whittier is, it provides you with a wonderful test bed for what it's going to be like when you get out to the work world. Try and build things. Do it now. You've got so much freedom that you probably don't recognize that you have to be able to try the things that are most important for you. And if somebody would have kind of kicked me in the ass when I was there, when I was a freshman, and said, "Go build more things. Go do more things," it would have been one of the things that I would have been more grateful than anything else that happened when I was there. It just happened to be the kind of person that liked that anyways. But you got to think about what you can start building right now, what you can do right now. Take advantage of the environment that you're in. It's a really wonderful place.
So marketing is really all-encompassing in most businesses. It is the responsible part of the business to actually drive the way that the business grows. So for me, at the company that I'm in, I work at a company that focuses on collaboration software. We're kind of in an interesting point in time culturally, in that we've got so much, and I'm sure you deal with this as students today, you've got so much access to information that it's pretty overwhelming. Right? How do you know where to look for something? How do you know, what the right sources are? How do you know who the right people are to connect with? And that space right now is particularly fascinating for me because in the marketing world, when you think about collaboration, you really have to think about what are all the different applications for collaboration, which is completely horizontal. So for me, my job in my company is to develop what the future of the business is going to be, to create the business model that our company is going to operate against, and then to institutionalize all of the ways that the company is going to support it. So over the last year, my responsibilities have been to come in, assess the business, identify kind of all of the things that most people think of as marketing, which would be the brand assets, like what the logo looks like, the colors, the website, those pieces. But more importantly, to really focus on how those elements relate to the core message that we're trying to sell to the market, and who it is that we're going to sell to, and how we're going to sell to them. So in the last year, we've reinvented pricing at the company, we've reinvented the targets that we sell to, and we've developed more and more products because we and the marketing organization have said that that's the way that our company is to be responsible for the growth of the business overall. Which is why I think marketing is such a great field. It isn't about just writing and communications and sending emails. It is about understanding what the business is and what the future potential for the business is, and then being able to put all the pieces together with all the employees that you have in your company and all the research that you have externally to actually make that business grow. It's a pretty fascinating space right now, and marketing generally has changed pretty dramatically in the past few years. It is no longer just about kind of pushing communications out. It is really about being the driver for the business, especially in the technology world.
Anybody else?
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? No?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
There's a question. I have a question. When you were saying that when you were saying that you graduated, you just kind of like wrote a letter to Yahoo, and that was pretty much, got your foot in the door. I'm curious, like, what companies or what industry do you think is at that point now that Yahoo was when you graduated? Like, what's the new burgeoning?
So something to think about when you're thinking about the places that you may want to work, and this is very true for me at Yahoo. I've always found that where I'm most excited, what I'm most excited about is finding a company that has a mission that I believe is really important. And for me, that is the tie that I found with Yahoo in particular, and with all the other roles that I've had at different companies. What we were working on, to me, didn't feel like I actually had to work. So what I've been pretty fortunate about over the past few years is to have spent quite a bit of time in kind of the growing world of social marketing and social media. I believe, just like 10, 15 years ago, as the companies like Yahoo were just starting, and several years later, Google started and kind of grew that business, most of the work that's happening in social media is actually just the beginning. It's a really, really fascinating industry, and it's almost superficial to say that I think companies like Facebook are the same as Yahoo was 15 years ago. But companies like Facebook, Twitter to a lesser extent, companies like LinkedIn, are really starting to tap into something that's important. If you think about the evolution of information consumption, especially the last couple of decades, we had companies like Yahoo that came along 13 years ago, and they had actual people. So when I started Yahoo, there was a group of people called surfers. And surfers' whole job was actually just to scour the internet and to organize sites that were interesting into categories. And that actually worked for a long time. So Yahoo kind of dominated in the space for about 10 years. But there came a point in time where the amount of information available on the internet surpassed the speed at which people could keep up with it. And this was really the advent of and the popularization of Google. So Google came along and with technology algorithmically indexed more information than Yahoo could ever hope to. And that's been the main way that we've accessed information for the past decade now. Where we are, especially being pushed by companies like Facebook now, is actually thinking about information consumption differently. The way that companies like Facebook have introduced concepts of the social graph, is everybody familiar with the concept of the social graph? It's this idea that every noun, every person or place has a representation kind of in the world and on the internet. And when you start to see the relationships between those nouns, information starts to have context. So what I think companies like Facebook and others like Facebook, LinkedIn as an example are doing is accomplishing what Yahoo set out to do, which is provide context, people context for information consumption, but to do that at the kind of scale that only Google has had to this point. So any industry in the technology space that's focused on finding social graph relationships with content, be that in the consumer world like Facebook or in the enterprise with companies like mine, I think that's where growth is going to happen for the next several years. And until a new paradigm for information searching and context around information comes about, which is going to happen at some point, I think this is going to be the preeminent way that we find information, through our information streams and the context of the people that we know and the places that we care about. And I think that is the place to think about if you're thinking about moving into the technology world and the internet in particular.
Thank you very much. So mathematics and computer science, I don't believe there's such a degree at Whittier anymore.
Right.
I believe you still have mathematics. No?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. Mathematics, right? So let me give you some background how I started. So I grew up in Taiwan. I moved to Hawaii to finish up my last year of high school in Hawaii, Maui. And then I applied to most of school in San Francisco, but for whatever the reason, I decided to come to Los Angeles and attend Whittier College. I started with business degree, and I thought that was my goal. I want to be like my dad and get into business. But one thing my dad pointed out is always good to have a technical degree tied together with business degree. So the first year or two, I was just focusing on business degree. But at the same time, I took a lot of mathematics class. I finished all 2 years of calculus. At the same time, I did some programming class as well. At that time, Dr. Fatahi was my advisor. Yes. So he recommended, say, well, why not double major? Probably now not many people do double major anymore at the same time and then finish in 4 years. So how did I start with JPL? Actually, it's quite a little luck, I guess. Because at that time I didn't even know what JPL is about. And even though you say NASA JPL, we are not a government employee. We actually is the employee of Caltech, just like Lincoln Lab to MIT. At that time I was working at the computer center. I still have that, right? In that building, the computer center. So back then.
Troy Green up there.
Troy, yes. Yeah.
He's still there.
He's still here?
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's the network admin.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay, so before Troy was, Dave Volta was the computer center manager.
Oh, yeah.
And he left Whittier and went to JPL and work. And so he came back and talked to Troy, say, I would like to hire somebody or have an intern, a student intern from Whittier. So at that time, they selected 5 students. All 4 of them, 4 out of 5 was senior. And I was only junior, going to senior the next year, went for interview. Didn't know what JPL was about and didn't know what they're looking for. So they select me. I think the reason is that they really would like to have that 1 year to try out before permanently hiring a person. So that was, I went through the so-called the intern program because once again, I was a business major. So I was trying to get credit from one of the business course while I was working part-time at JPL. And they accept that program. And they give me a special project working on. So think about this, okay, JPL. Majority of the employee over there are from top 10 school, right? MIT, Caltech, Cornell, Stanford, Berkeley, right? So I was quite intimidated, facing that a different environment. But good thing was, you just have to go with the full speed. With the project in hand, you try your best. So I was running around. Once again, I was, double majoring, right? So over here, at school, full time, extra credits, trying to finish in 4 years, and at the same time working 20 hours at JPL, just trying to finish the project. So after the project is about, I would say about 6 months or so, okay? And they are hiring, and at that time I know, 89, they are hiring because there were 2 major missions was taking place. One is a Venus mapping mission called Magellan. And the other one is Voyager, which is already flying and by approaching Neptune. So they require a lot of people and a lot of workforce. So my department at that time decided to hire 7 new graduates from different schools. So after I finished the project, it went very smoothly because the project is very isolated. You guys probably don't know what mainframe is. Back then we had mainframe, right? VAX and so at that time my project was helping the developers to come out, develop this tool or scripts so that they can do testing more easily. There's a third-party software, if you will. It's not easily used, and nobody wants to use it. The developer hates it, and so I developed a script, so help them to run the tool very easily. So it was successful. They accepted, and so they decided to interview me, be one of the candidates, and to be the 7. And once again, that was another step that I thought was very intimidating. It went through several layers of interview. Some of the interviews, like part of the interview saying that I'm going to test your math, your how solid your mathematics is. After several couple times of interview, I thought that's it. My chance is 0. But a week later, they offered me a job. So out of that 7, most of them are from Caltech and Cornell, and I'm the one, from Whittier College. So I was quite fortunate. And believe it or not, after 24 years over there, that 7, only 2 left.
Wow.
Okay, and I'm one of them. majority they pursue some other career in the summer. So that's how I started from Whittier to JPL, and that's my first job, and it still is my only job so far. And enjoy every step of the way. It's one thing I can say to you is that if you want, the opportunity is always there for you. Okay, even though a tough environment like a JPL, very competitive, the people working over there are super smart. If you want, you can get what you want. Okay, you just have to try very hard and work very hard. So I started as an integration and test engineer for different multi-mission. People always say that, hey, your background should be programming, mathematics, why you want to try integration and test. And my philosophy at that time saying, I want to learn. I want to be there and try different things. So actually, I switched to different teams every 6 months just to learn, how to do missions, okay, from scratch and design. And at the same time, I also taking some classes at USC as well, because technology evolved last 20-something years. From mainframe to what you have right now is a big jump. So it's very important that you keep your skills up to date, not just keep whatever you have learning right now. 10 years later, it's going to be totally different. And also, I really met a lot of great people at JPL. Even though, a lot of engineers and scientists, you thought that, oh my God, they're chip on their shoulder, they are not fun to work with. But I really, met a lot of good mentors. The key thing is really align yourself with the people you think that is going to do good in an organization. And that will do good things for you, okay? And don't be shy. Okay, that's really the key thing, because at first, I was really intimidated, right? Working with a whole bunch of smart people, you just have to develop a thick skin and go for it. How I get where I am is I feel like, you had to try different things. You had to be humble, okay? Willing to try different things and develop a good working relationship. Come up with the new ideas and don't be shy about pushing the idea forward. It's kind of hard to find a niche because everybody is so smart. Everybody knows how to do programming, or everybody knows how to do mathematics well. But the niche, previous panelists are talking about marketing, right? The marketing of yourself and the marketing the capability that you can develop. It's very important. So JPL is quite large. It's 5,000 people. And the whole lab is larger than Disneyland. Just kind of give you the perspective.
Whoa, larger than Disneyland?
Yes, it's larger than Disneyland. I always have trouble walking from east side to west side. I need to drive my car. So the focus is really developing different type of mission for astrophysics. You heard about the Mars landing, Curiosity, the most exciting event recently. We also do a lot of Earth observation research as well. Okay, my section right now is largest section in the whole lab. If you're talking about a business unit, average section is about 120 people, but mine is double the size of 250. And the reason they took a chance 5 years ago, combined two sections together. One is more focused on the mission development, and the other section was more focused on technology development. And they're trying to combine them together and make sure that they have a good opportunity across. And they can pick somebody who have very, a lot of experience and to be the section manager, but they pick a rookie. But I'm very proud to say the last 5 years is the most wonderful years of my life, because that's really the time that you can infuse a lot of your idea, and you have the responsibility of carrying an organization of 250 people forward. Okay, what you learn from school at that point of time perhaps is not as important. It's really experience after school, and then giving you that force and make you, and push you forward. Our focus right now is, really developing a next generation science data system. So all those images that you have seen news or on the website about Curiosity landing the first image pop out, that's the software that we develop in our section. And also we do the processing as well. And archiving and the whole process, end-to-end data system. Okay. So I'm enjoying every step of it, and still enjoying it. And if you ask me what's my next step, and I'm going to tell you that I don't know, because every step of the way that Linda, you mentioned about my previous experience at JPL, I'm going to tell you, I never apply any job. I get invited to apply to that job. Okay. So if you, align yourself with the right people, and you develop a capability, it's visible, people know you're good, people want you to be in a certain position. Okay. Sometimes you just don't have to push it so hard. The opportunities just come to you. In reality, JPL, okay, if you talk to the overall population, it's still only 25% women. And if you talk about engineering and science area, so we have a directorate is in focus engineering and science, the population is only 10%. That's the fact. I think overall the school has been doing a very good job in terms of recruiting and encouraging female students to do well in the engineering and science area. But still, there's still a long way to go. So part of my job is, if I have an opportunity, I go to school, since they're a little elementary school, encouraging the girls or Girl Scout, troops, to get into, interested in mathematics and science. And it is okay to be good in mathematics and science as a female. Because a lot of people say, gee, working with a bunch of geeks, it's just not very fashionable. But it's okay. It is, those people could be fun, and some is really a little odd, but it's okay. We're just trying to get our job done, and it's very important that you, once again, develop a good relationship. People come, in different package, right, and different background, different capabilities. And as a leader, okay, not a manager now, as a leader is trying to bring the best out of them. Okay, and it is okay to encourage people to be better than you. Because a lot of people later on to become a manager, they say that, let me select somebody who's not as good. It is okay because I don't want to be replaced. Okay, and don't think that way, because, you want to be there, be influential, and build up people to be better than you. And that's your job.
Thank you. Well, you'll have a chance to ask some questions, or do you want to ask one right
I have a
now?
quick
Go
question.
ahead.
Sure.
What do you think the pros and cons are of a liberal education in a working environment like JPL?
I think the pros are because it's very diversified. Well, first of all, Whittier is a very small school compared to other universities. And that's one thing I really enjoyed very much during that 4 years when I was here. I feel like I could talk to Dr. Fatahi one-on-one when I have questions about mathematics or numerical analysis. He's just there to help me. I'm not talking to a student aide. Because when I was, at USC taking classes, oh my God, the lecture hall. It was so huge, and it's just full of students. There's no way that I can talk to someone if I have a question. Okay, so it's just a very different environment. So the pro is because the size of the school, and it's very diversified. You can try different things. You can take different classes. You can talk to different people. Once again, it's established that working relationship, and good relationship brings you to good opportunities. The cons are, once again, it's a smaller school. The focus in technology and engineering is just not, quite there. I know you are establishing, right? Some of you are aerospace engineering. You are. When I was here, there's no aerospace engineering.
There's no program other than the 3-2 program. University of Southern California, actually.
Oh, you're with USC?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's very important. With a smaller school, they have to somehow, establish a good, connection with other university and help out that way. But once again, what you learn at school is one thing. It's how you apply it and use all the knowledge you have, not just from the book, but it's, working with people, the teamwork. Once again, I didn't mention about teamwork, so important. I remember when I was in school, there are not many team projects. I don't know, but at that time, not many team projects. But I'm, as a hiring manager, I want, people have experience of being working in a team environment. So I would encourage the school to have more team projects and working together. So that's a phone call. Did I answer you?
Yeah, perfect, yeah.
Okay, our next guest is Gerard Forster, class of '87. Gerard joined Evolution Hospitality as a founding partner and vice president of information technology in just 2011. At Evolution, Gerard's team is responsible for the architecture, optimization, and administration of all systems, networks, and applications. Prior to joining Evolution, Gerard served for 5 years as the vice president of information technology for Tassadia Hotels, where he held similar responsibilities. Before transitioning to the hospitality industry, Gerard served on the senior leadership team of both Acoustic Home Loans and Town & Country Mortgage. While in these posts, he was the chief architect, engineer, and project manager for each company, leading the development of automated underwriting and loan origination systems. Gerard has also held positions as the general manager for Southern California Speed Shop, a leading trendsetter in the hot rod industry, the director of marketing and editor for the Specialty Equipment Market Association, assistant director of admissions at Whittier College, and as the director of education at the Whittier Boys and Girls Club. Gerard has been married to his wife Gail, whom he met during orientation as a freshman at Whittier for 27 years, and has 2 grown children, Patrick and Janine, who graduated from Whittier in 2008. Gerard also has a wonderful grandson, Liam, who will be graduating from Whittier College in 2033. That's nice, far-reaching planning.
Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome, Gerard.
Thank you. So I am very honored to be part of this illustrious panel. I feel in listening to both of you, I want to go back to school and do everything over, especially you. I'm a big fan of JPL. Oh my gosh. So my story's a little different. I think I was a little bit less directed, and I knew less about myself and what I wanted to do when I was in college. And that may be what some of you feel like. You certainly have picked majors and stuff, but maybe you don't really know what you want to be. And even if you do know what you want to be, you don't know if anybody's going to hire you. So I know that that's a stressor for you guys, especially probably you, because you asked that question. That was a great question. I want to talk about Whittier just real quick. I did meet my wife here, and I love the school just because of that. But you reminded me of something that happened to me that I haven't thought about in 25 years. Dr. Fatahi was my first math professor here. He was a calculus professor. And calculus was a cycle. You took calculus A, calculus B, C, D, all this kind of stuff. So I was also on the lacrosse team, and I was social and all kinds of stuff. And I had studied for the first test. You had like 4 tests in calculus A and a final. I think that was how it worked, right? Mm-hmm. And I was out late the night before, and I came into the calculus exam, and I was like really tired. And so I said, let me just put my head down and just kind of gather my thoughts, and then I'll be ready to start this test. So I fell asleep, and I woke up like 5 minutes before the test was over. I couldn't believe that. That's not like me to do. I was always a very good student. Anyway, I got an 18 on that test. And so that was like the first week of school. Or
it was not 0?
No, it was 18. I woke up real fast, and I got the first one or something. So anyway, I got an 18 on the test, and so I was like, oh my goodness. So I had to really buckle down. I got like a 97 on every test after that, but I still got a C in the class. So I went up to him and I said, I got 97, and it's cumulative. Calculus is cumulative. You can't, if you take the final, you had to know everything on everything before. You can't just, learn that chapter. And he goes, well, actually, I did, and I said to him, you could have helped me out here, give me a B at least. He goes, well, I did. You really had a C minus. Anyway, so I hadn't thought of that in a while, so thank you very much.
But that is tough.
Yeah, he was tough. So, but you learned a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I ended up with an English degree. I was originally started as a 3-2 engineering. They had a program with Stanford at the time. And I came to campus and they canceled it. And so, but it, you know, it wasn't a big deal, right? And so actually I'm very glad they did because I got to spend more time at Whittier. I got an English degree. I was in the scholars program and I designed some kind of thing, but really it was an English degree. And I ended up graduating from Whittier, and a classmate of mine, so this was part of what you said, find people who, you know, you connect with people who are doing things, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but a classmate of mine went to work for the specialty equipment. Actually, I went to work in admissions for a while, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I went to work at the admissions office. And I learned a lot of great things there. They actually sent me to work in the computer lab with Dave Volkman, doing running statistical analysis reports, deciding you know what students really did well at Whittier College, you know, and we found out that it was, you know, they had no idea who did well and what it could predict if you did well. And so we went through all this data and there was lots of analysis and cross-tabulation of things, and we came out with that Hispanic females who had high GPAs, and it didn't matter what their SAT scores or whatever it was, but that was the most likely student to do well at Whittier College, the ones that you could predict based on their high school performance. Everybody else, it was just a shot in the dark. You couldn't tell. You couldn't tell how well they would do as a student. So that started, but it tied in with admissions and things. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. But after admissions, I got a job editing a magazine in the hot rod industry. And so the hot rod industry is building old cars, and started to get to know those people, started working on cars, started to get to know a lot of craftsmen. I got a job at Boyd's Wheels. It was the first company, it was an entrepreneurial company building custom wheels. Jesse James, Chip Foose, Boyd Coddington built expensive cars, $500,000, $1 million cars with $300,000 paint jobs on them. Opened a company called the SoCal Speed Shop, and just had this great kind of place, but I really couldn't make any money at it because there was always somebody willing to do it just for the love of it and do it cheaper. And so and make a good impression. You carried that over into your professional life. But also the liberal education taught you how to learn. It taught you that no matter what topic or subject or career that you end up in, you'll be able to learn it. You'll be able to pick it up. And everything we know now, everything you know now, and everything I know now will no longer be relevant 10 years from now, just like you said. But the reason that we'll continue to do well is because we'll know how to learn those things.
The critical thinking.
Right? Yeah, critical thinking skills. And we learn that, I believe, that you learn that better at a smaller school than you do at a larger school. I'm sure a lot of people will debate me on that, but for me, that's what I believe. And I know that worked for my daughter as well, and I know Whittier is the same kind of place now as it was when I went to school here. But moving along, I decided you're going to change careers I think the average now is 7 times in your life, and it's going to only go on and more, right? So much of the angst you have now of transitioning out of college and into the workforce, you're going to have that a bunch of times. You're very lucky.
I know.
And
I'm the same.
you've changed careers several times, or at least, oh, you can't see me. You've changed quite a few times, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
But you need to be prepared for that, and the skills you're learning here will prepare you for that. So midlife, I had kids, they needed to go to college, I needed to figure out how to pay for them both to go to college, make enough money, do something with my life. I got much more heavily involved in technology. And I specifically love computers, I always did. Every company I was at, I always set up the networks and the systems and the software and did programming on the side, even though I might have been the general manager of the company. And I decided to go back to school. I became a Cisco engineer and basically parlayed that into different technology careers, and I kind of worked my way up. But because I had gone to Whittier and I could speak well and I could present well and I knew how to do projects and I knew how to learn quickly and I had managed people, I moved up like extremely quickly, because a lot of times you're competing against people
That's right.
who may be very strong technically, but they're not necessarily good at working in teams, and they're not necessarily good at expressing things in a way that don't make people feel stupid or belittle people when they try to explain why something can't happen or those sorts of things. So I worked in the mortgage industry. Luckily at the time the mortgage industry was just exploding, the subprime mortgage industry, and they needed people to build the infrastructure to build huge companies. I mean, I started at a company and we had like 6 employees, and then we were doing like $12 billion within,
Wow.
a couple of years. And that kind of growth is just ridiculous, right? So it was like monopoly money after a while. And then it all came crashing down. And so you had to find your way again. So now I've moved into hospitality. I'm part owner of a company that manages, owns, and operates hotels. San Diego Hard Rock is one of the hotels that we run. And they're mostly through California. And the best part of what I've been doing lately is putting people to work. So the other day I was at a construction site. We're building like 10 hotels right now. And for a few years we were building nothing. Nobody was building anything. And so I was at this construction site maybe 6 months ago, and there's about 200 guys crawling around building, welders and masons and carpenters and things, drywallers, stuff like that. And they were so happy to be working. And the feeling that you get from putting people to work is just amazing. And so I'd like to echo what Yasha said about go out and build something, right? I remember going to an Occupy. My son was out in New Mexico living on an organic farm recently, and I ended up driving through Albuquerque with him, and there was a big Occupy movement there. And one of the things he and I were talking about was how the real heroes for those people are the people that figure out how to put them to work in a job that they really like and are passionate about. And so I was hoping, I remember just being struck by that, hoping that there were people in that Occupy crowd that knew that really what they need to do, rather than just protest, but the protesting is important, right, because they feel disenfranchised, but to do something about it and put each other to work. And I think listening to Yasha kind of inspired me in that I would challenge you guys to figure out how to put all your classmates to work. Graduate, start something, or join something that's starting up, take a risk when you're young, and help each other. Just like you got a job at JPL. I'm sure you've hired people you've known. Well, he can't see me, but I'm sure he's hired a lot of people he's known and given them a hand up. And that's really what you guys need to do, because there's no better feeling. you're worried about a paycheck and all those kind of stuff, those will come. Once you get your first job, with the skills you'll learn here, your career will come. But you got to get that first job, obviously. But if you can build something, if you can transition into creating a company on your own or with other people, there's just no greater feeling. So anyway, that's about my story.
Thank you, George. Does anyone have any questions?
Don't be shy.
Well, usually after it's officially over, then people tend
Sure.
to
Yeah.
mingle and come up with questions individually. But we do traditionally ask a question of you, and you can win a prize based on what our speakers have shared. Are you ready to do that, Carolyn?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, just to introduce myself, I'm Caroline Galvin, class of 2008, and Assistant Director of Alumni Relations. So, if you guys ever have any questions about any of our speakers, or you want to get in touch with people, please come ask us. We're right above the registrar's office. And hi, Asha. And we welcome you to come look into that. Just a quick fact about the house that you're in is the December Alumni House. The house and this B2B program are both gifts of, Ray December, as well as the class of 1957. So alumni feel that it's important to give back and to have you guys then mingle with our alumni and get opportunities like this to really get in touch with the people who went to Whittier before you and learn from their experiences. So I also just want to give our panelists a round of applause. So we truly appreciate them taking some time out of their very busy lives to come and speak with you all and stay after and answer questions and all of that. So just want to real quickly offer them a little bit of a gift. So that one's for you.
Thank you.
This one's for you.
Thank you
And
so
Yasha,
much.
I will be sending yours tomorrow. So
Oh, do you
you're
know
not
a
out
nice
of it.
notebook?
And then we have a couple of student gifts that we do. So the first one is for all of you that RSVP, because we think RSVPing to events is very important. So for those of you who RSVP'd, you've been put in the bowl. And is it Damaris?
Yeah.
Awesome. This is for you. Thank you. And then the second one that we do is Linda's going to ask a question about something that one of the panelists may have talked about, and we'll see who raises your hand first.
Okay, so there is actually a theme that I sensed between all three of them, a message that they wanted to share with you. Who could articulate something that combines all of their messages? Yes, you raised first.
Adapt and learn and build something.
Ah, bingo, right on. Adapt and learn and build something. Very nicely said.
Very good.
Okay, well that does conclude our evening, and if you would like to stay and help us eat all these wonderful snacks and refreshments, please help yourself. And I would just recommend, did you bring business cards?
Yes, we did.
So you could ask for a business card, and if there are any internship opportunities that you'd like to share with students or ideas for how they could go about it if you don't have any direct responsibility for that, or would like to give them tips on how to find how to get in that insider Whittier way that would benefit them, please share with them as well. And you can ask, don't be shy.
And Carol, maybe what we should do is if they want to mingle and chat, if Yasha has some time and people want to talk with him, they can come stand by the fireplace.
Yeah, so if you want to come talk to Yasha a little bit, come see me, I'll mute and unmute him. And then,
Or you might be able to take that screen off. And it'll
yeah,
work
you can
fine.
just work with the computer
Yeah.
over here. And then also, Elizabeth brought a video, it's about 3 minutes long, about the Mars mission. So
As a curiosity, you might have seen the video. This is talking about where were you when Curiosity landed, and also included some of the sequence, if you will, the landing, because it's quite challenging. We are just thrilled to have a very successful mission. So right now we actually landed 4 rovers.
Thanks. That looks good.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Vehicle reports entry interface. At this time,
That was-
we get pressurized.
that was a little Hollywood
Increase the
there.
thrust of the
Yeah, it's
system.
weird.
So,
Did you
that's for all the maneuvering in the atmosphere we're about to do. We are standing by for guidance start of guided entry.
looking at the screen because everything is autonomous. You know, it's already loaded.
Yeah.
Just it fly, right? And you just have to monitor to make sure there's no anomaly.
Sorry, first anchor. Just reporting that we are seeing G's on the order of 11 to 12 per seat.
So each stage they send back a signal, say successful.
Parachute deploy around Mach 1.7.
That's our director, Dr. Watch on the right.
Parachute deploy.
So that's another spacecraft taking
We are
pictures.
decelerating. Digital has separated. We're down to ground command. We're down to 90 meters per second at an altitude of 6.5 kilometers and setting. Standing by for batch cell separation. We are in powered flight. We're at an altitude of 1 kilometer descending.
By the way, my department also did this simulation for this one. Really?
Single nod, you remain strong.
They had to cut the cord.
Touchdown confirmed. We're seeing
Those people are crazy.
Well, that's so many years of work, right?
It is.
All culminating in 1 second.
10 years.
Yeah.
Oh.